So I just recently completed my Satisfactory Beginner's Guide, and I wanted to share with you what I've learned throughout playing the Beginner's Guide and throughout playing 1,000 hours of Satisfactory. Because during the Beginner's Guide, I did finally hit 1,000 hours, and I just kind of wanted to share with you what I have learned, and maybe you can take some of this information away and apply it yourself. Here's 10 things that I wish I knew 1,000 hours ago. So the first thing I kind of want to cover is build styles. So within this world, I had multiple different build styles. I was kind of experimenting. I was trying to get better at building. Some of them worked out, like that one, like this one especially. This one worked out. That one worked out. That one worked out. And then there are some that did not work out, like that one. But it's okay, you gotta experiment. Just experiment with how to build. Now, one of the biggest things I like to do when it comes to building is I use foundations over walls, for example. The walls are really thin and you can't do a whole lot with them, but with foundations, you can rotate these. You can do whatever you want to do with foundations and make some really cool shapes with this. I mean, you can even see it on this building. We go straight and then we bend a little bit. You can even see it with this building here. It's not perfectly rectangular. It adds some interest to the build. So I prefer to build with foundations, and then I can use windows in between, or I can try to come up with different designs. I tend to avoid using walls for the actual walls itself. I like to offset the windows into the foundations that I use for the walls. So that's my build style. You need to come up with your own build style. It could be copying what I do here. Now, in this series, I did do a lot of outlining with the foundations, and then I filled in the middle. You don't always have to do this. So, for example, this one is actually a pretty good example here. I did outline the building, but I also used foundations as the decorative piece in the middle. So, there are many different build styles you can do. Experiment, play around with it. Don't just stick to one thing. Don't just build walls vertically. There's so much you can do with this. Guess the second thing I wanted to talk about while we're on the topic of building things is build larger than you think you need. Because the reality is, train stations are huge. And they take up a lot more space than you anticipate. So if you're using a train station and you want to implement it with your building, you need to build it bigger than you think. I can show you an example over here. So in this building here, I thought I built this large enough, and then I set up the trains, and holy crap, I almost ran out of space. This is what I'm talking about. If you don't build it large enough, you won't be able to fit your train station in here, because each train station is 2 foundations long, and it's about 5 foundations wide. It's not quite 5 foundations, it's just a little over 4.5. Keep that in mind when you're building these. If you have a lot of cars, you're gonna need a lot bigger area, and you will find that you will quickly run out of space. And even when you're building your factories, like this one over here, this was my steel factory, there were a lot of times I just ran out of space. Like on this floor, I fit in a lot of assemblers, but it's cramped. I could have utilized more space. A lot of these are kind of similar. Some of them utilize space really well, and others did not. So the third thing I wanted to talk about, and this is still on the topic of building. So there's a lot of things I wish I knew about building before I started playing. And one thing I certainly did not know how to do when I started playing was how to do blueprints. So blueprints make things easier. And now the reason why I'm saying I didn't know how to do blueprints is not for not knowing how to actually use the blueprint maker, because I could figure that out pretty easily. It was figuring out what I need to make into a blueprint to use. So figuring out what you can try to blueprint and use consistently is the hard part. So for example, I have this chain fence here where it's just a bunch of these, what do you call them? It's a bunch of these industrial railings here stacked on top of each other. I don't want to build that over and over and over again, but I could build a blueprint and have it already build for me. And it would be a lot simpler than stacking up multiple of these on top of each other over and over and over again. So I built a blueprint for it instead. So things like that really help. Same with this blueprint here. This one would suck to make over and over and over again because it's a bunch of painted beams. So what I did here is it's a painted beam, and then it's a painted beam, and then I had to lock it in place, shift it up by half, and I had to do that over and over and over again. So this was a good example of a blueprint to make, so I didn't have to do it over and over again. So that's a good example of a blueprint use. Another good example is these ceiling lights that I have here. I don't want to make these ceiling lights over and over and over again. So I blueprinted them, and I can easily place them within the building here. I have this blueprint here. I can snap it to the ceiling here, but I like to offset it by half so it's kind of buried in the ceiling, and then I just plop it, and then I can line them up wherever I need to go, and I have ceiling lights, and they're really easy to build. Building those ceiling lights over and over and over again would be a pain, but the biggest thing I used blueprints for was my highway, my train highway system. I built one of these, so it's a train highway, and then what I would do, and this is how I got my train highway really well and built quickly, is I would switch the build mode to blueprint auto connect. Then I would click here to auto connect, press H on the keyboard for computers to lock the hologram, and then I'd press the arrow keys to move it forward, and that's how I would build my rails here. And that made building rails a lot easier than placing it manually, and that's why I was able to build these rails really quickly and really efficiently. So learning when and where and how to use blueprints is definitely something that you should focus on early when you start playing. Now, if you want a blueprint tutorial, let me know, and I can try to create a tutorial on how to make blueprints, how to save it, how to load it, how to use it. Let me know if that is something that interests you. I will definitely make one if you are interested. The next thing I want to talk about is manifolding versus load balancing. Now, load balancing is great. It allows you to build any factory and it starts up immediately and you never have to worry about it because it's all load balanced. You don't have to wait for it to warm up. You don't have to wait for it to start. But I don't think I used load balancing once in my beginner's guide. I think I manifolded everything. I guess the only time I'd load balance is if there's only two things to load balance, but as you can see, I manifolded everything. This is a manifold. That's a manifold. If I go up a level, this looks kind of strange, but it's all a manifold. This is a manifold. That's all manifolds. All of this is manifolds. Like, I did not use load balancing anywhere. They're all manifolds. And even in one of my most basic factories that I did was the steel factory. It's all a manifold. All of it. Every single bit of it is a manifold. I did not use load balancing within this world. Now you can use load balancing, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with load balancing. I didn't use it because I found manifolds to be a lot simpler, even though there was the cost of a longer factory startup time. But everything I did in this world was manifolded. But when I first started, I tried load balancing everything, and that was hard. And I wish I knew manifolding was a perfectly acceptable option. For the next thing that I wish I knew about 1,000 hours ago is how to properly use trucks. And this might be a little bit controversial because some people love trucks, some people hate trucks. It could be all across the board. Me personally, I actually love trucks. They're really cool to use and they're fun to set up, but they do have their issues. They're a lot better than they used to be, for sure. But I wish I knew how to properly use them. And I don't think I still know how to properly use them. I'm using them currently, but I don't know if I know how to use them for large quantities of items. And 1,000 hours ago, I certainly knew nothing about trucks. I didn't know how to use them. I didn't know what they were good for. And I certainly shied away from using them because stuff like that would happen. But the reality is, trucks are just fine. They're a little janky, but they're just fine. And they're fun to use. So, I've only ever had 2 problems when setting up trucks in this world. One problem is I had set up a route stupidly and they got stuck right in this area. But all it took was me fixing it. Like I just moved a truck out of the way and then they never got stuck again. Don't ask me how that happened. And the other time, and it's actually recorded in my turbo motor build. If you watch the turbo motor episode, you will see the other problem that wasn't my fault. It was the game's fault, and it almost broke this entire save. And I had to stop using trucks in this world because of it. You should go check out that video because it's kind of interesting. But that was the only other problem I ever had. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be worked on with trucks by the developers, but they still work. They're still a viable option, even though they have issues. They have issues, as I'm showing you right now. It's still fun to watch them. Oh my goodness. It may seem like I know all about trains, and it's only because I started working with them at around the 600 hour mark. I never touched trains before 600 hours. Well, I did. I messed with them, but I didn't fully dive into it. I had a train that would go to one station, turn around, and come back. And that's all that train station did. And I would set up a new train line every time that happened. Every time I needed one. I never, ever set up a train highway before. 600 hours about. Once I got to 600 hours, I was like, you know what? I need to try this train highway thing. And I failed massively on my first attempt. I didn't fail as bad on my second attempt. And this is my third attempt at a train highway. And once you get the hang of trains, it all makes sense. All of a sudden it makes sense. But it's something I wish I knew how to do 1,000 hours ago. I had a giant mistake over here where that junction was actually a lot closer. So that junction right here was up here instead. And it caused me issues. And I didn't know what to do about it. So I had to redo this entire thing and back it up. And all of a sudden I didn't have the issue anymore. So things like that, just learning what you need to do. And then if you got a crazy junction like I have here, where it seems really complicated, just throw a path signal on the outside of each entrance and a block signal on the exit side of everything, and the trains will handle it for you. Like, honestly, path signals, learning how to use path and block signals is key for learning how to set up trains. Because quite frankly, if you don't know how to use path and block signals, you don't know how to set up trains. So learn how to do this. I do have a couple guides on how to do trains. I have one on my channel and I have one on my friend Grotto's channel. And you should check them both out if you're trying to learn how to do trains, because I think they both give you an idea of what you need to do. So the next thing that I wish I knew about 1,000 hours ago is alternate recipes. What is good? What is bad? How do you know what's a good alternate recipe and what's not a good alternate recipe? Well, a way to kind of look at that is to figure out what does it currently take to make, let's say, the staters here. What does it currently take to make staters? And what is this alternate recipe trying to show you to do? And then figure out what you would rather use. So here, I'll just use this as an example. I'll use the quick wire stators. So these both require assemblers, so no change there. But one of them is regular stators and one of them is quick wire stators. Now, the regular stators is 15 steel pipes, 40 wire. It's pretty simple to make. Quick wire stator is 16 steel pipes and 60 quick wire, which seems like you need a lot more stuff, but you actually get a lot more stators per minute too. You're increasing it from 5 to 8 per minute. So you kind of have to objectively look at what do you need, what do you have around you, and what's going to be easier for you to make. And your situation is going to change all the time. Some recipes are not better or worse than the original. Example, this quick wire stator is not better or worse. It just depends on the environment you're in. And then there are some recipes that are objectively better than the counterpart. For example, screws versus cast screws. So the difference between this is screws require iron rods, and that just requires a whole nother constructor behind it. So you would need iron rods behind this, and you would produce screws. Whereas cast screws, all you need is a smelter of iron behind it. You don't need the step to get iron rods. You can just go from iron ingots straight to screws, whereas the original recipe you have to go from iron ingot to iron rods to then screws. So that is an objectively better recipe, and you don't lose any screws, you don't lose anything. You actually gain by using the alternate recipe, which is great. Now we can also look at an objectively worse recipe. For example, the steel cast plate recipe here, I would say is objectively worse. And the only reason I say this is I don't see a point in using steel ingots to create iron plates. I think that is objectively a bad decision, because now you're introducing coal to a simple iron recipe, and you could just use more iron to create iron plates instead of introducing coal plus iron and more iron to create more iron plates. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is objectively a worse recipe because you're introducing another item to create something that only requires iron. And that's why I think that's an objectively worse recipe. The eighth thing I want to talk about that I didn't know 1,000 hours ago, when I first started doing aluminum, I had no idea how to do this. This step is easy enough because it's bauxite, water, and you get alumina solution and silica. You can handle the silica, you can sink it, do whatever you want with it, it doesn't really matter. This is fine. But then you get to this problem here where you combine alumina solution and coal, and you get aluminum scrap, which is fine, but you get a byproduct of water. And getting a byproduct of water is really difficult to deal with, especially when you don't know how to do it properly. When I first started doing aluminum, my byproduct of water would back up constantly because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to properly set this up. I didn't know the rules of pipes. Now that I know the rules of pipes, I know how to never back up on water. And it's as simple as this. You have your water pipe coming in that is bringing in, what is this, 180 plus 180, that's what, 360 minus 120, that's 240. So you're bringing in 240 on this pipe because you want to split this up evenly. You bring in 240 from this pipe, you get 120 as a byproduct. You can recycle that and everything will be fine. Now, typically, most people will initially set it up with a junction here, and then they will connect it up to the side like this, right? Most people will do this, which makes sense. You would just come back and connect it up to the line, but you get a problem. Sometimes this, or most of the time, this pipe would take priority, and then you would have backup here, and you would start to back up in this spot here, and then everything shuts down because you cannot sustain getting rid of the water quick enough, and everything would back up, and then this pipe would overflow, and you would never be able to reset any of this. So the proper way to handle this is to take the pipe, go underneath. Oh, of course. So I took the pipe and I went underneath, and then I set up a pump right here so that nothing backflows, and I send it back up to a junction, to a pipeline junction that is facing vertically. So the pipeline junction is facing vertically, and for some reason in this game, a pipe going from the bottom will take priority from any other side of the junction. So all the byproduct of water from that refinery will take priority in this junction over anything else in that pipe. And that is what you're trying to do. You're trying to set a priority so you don't have any backup over there. So when you get a priority here, it doesn't matter if this pipe is full. It can be full as it needs to be. This pipe needs to be, well, it's full, but it's flowing. But you can see over here, we're not backing up. See, that's what we want. We don't want this to back up. So we can look in this pipe, it's empty. That's exactly what we want. We want that to be empty. So learning this simple trick by putting your byproduct at the bottom of a junction will prioritize that junction. And then you won't have any backups at all. But make sure to put a pump here so that the water doesn't flow this way. You want it to flow this way. So when you get to aluminum, make sure you remember to set up this pump, because otherwise you'll have issues if you don't. But that is the best way to handle aluminum. I wish I knew this when I first started doing aluminum. I hope you remember this tip when you do aluminum. And we'll move on to the final two things I wish I knew 1,000 hours ago. So my next tip has to do with power. Now there's a lot of ways you can build power in this game, but the typical progression is biomass to coal to oil to nuclear. That's what the game tried to push you to do. You don't have to do all of that. I do recommend that you set up coal, because coal will help you get through the early game. And I recommend you set up oil, because oil can take you to the end of the game. And in my case, it did take me to the end of the game. I set up a turbo fuel power plant originally, and I converted it to a rocket fuel power plant. And I am generating 133,000 megawatts of power off of one pure oil node. So power is never an issue in this game if you set it up correctly. Now, if you don't set it up correctly, I can't really help you with that, right? But if you set up power correctly, you will never have a problem with power. And my one advice for setting up power is always set up more than you need. You will never regret setting up more power than what you need. I am producing 133,000 megawatts. I am consuming a maximum of 65,000 megawatts. And this is me being crazy. You won't need this much power to complete the game. I need this much power because I'm trying to 100% every factory, have it 100% efficient, and never stops. That's what I'm trying to do. You won't need this much power, but just setting up enough power to get you far in the game, you will never regret that. You will never ever regret setting up more power than you need. You will always regret not setting up enough power. Always. So I guess the thing I wish I knew when I first started is build more power. Build more power than you think you need. Because when I first started playing, I only built what I needed when I needed it. And I constantly had to stop doing what I was doing to build more power. But in this one, I built a massive power plant, and it carried me through most of the game. I built a massive turbo fuel, and I only upgraded it to rocket fuel because it was one extra step, and it was easy. But it carried me, and it's gonna carry me through my next series that takes place on this world, where I'm building the largest nuclear power plant that I can possibly build. And maybe at the end of this video, I might show you a little sneak peek of what I've been working on. But I will have a video coming, hopefully before Christmas, for the first episode of it. But yeah, I'm going to be building the largest nuclear power plant you can possibly build in Satisfactory, just to see if I can do it. That's the only reason. I just want to see if it's possible. But yeah, I'll have a little sneak peek at the end of this video, I think, so you can kind of see just how crazy this nuclear power plant is. So yeah, stay tuned for that. I got one more tip, and then I'll show you that little sneak peek, and then we'll call it a day. The final tip that I want to share with you, that I wish I knew 1,000 hours ago, is stop worrying about what your factory looks like if you're just starting. If you're just starting, just try to beat the game. Just beat the game. Figure out what this game has to offer. Get through everything. Make a mess. Make spaghetti. Just absolutely disgust yourself with how you're playing the game. But just beat it. Just finish the game. Just do it once. And then start over. And do it better. That's my final advice. Start over. Do it better. But beat the game. Beat it once. And then start over and do it better. I didn't get this good at building right away. I didn't get this good at building 500 hours in. I didn't get this good at building 750 hours in. I don't even think I'm that good at building still. But I'm getting better. Every time I start over, every time I start something new, I'm getting better. And if you want to get better, You gotta beat the game. Beat the game once. You see everything that you need to see, and then start over. Start over. You know what's coming. You know what to handle. You know how to handle it, and do it better. That's my advice for you. That is something I wish I knew 1,000 hours ago. But to be fair, 1,000 hours ago, the game was in beta, alpha, whatever you want to call it. It wasn't fully released yet. But I told myself when I first got 1.0, which I was about 200 hours into the game, I'm going to beat this game. And I don't care how it looks. I'm just going to beat it. And then after I beat it, I restarted the game, and I started to care about how it looks. I wasn't good at it, but then I restarted the game, I tried to care about how it looks, and I got better, and I got better, and I got better, and I got better, and so on and so forth. So if you're just starting the game, or if you've never beaten the game before, just beat the game. Because then you see what's coming, you know what's coming, and then you can plan how to tackle it. That is my advice to you. Let's go take a look at a little sneak peek of the nuclear power plant that I'm going to be working on. It's going to be a multi-part series. I hope you're excited for that series. I'm excited to drive myself absolutely insane. So in total I need 588 power plants, 141,120 water. I'd get rid of all the waste and produce 1,470,000 megawatts of power. Now, I found out that uranium is in fact not the limiting resource. It's SAM. Now, I know it says 9,333.33 SAM. There's actually more than enough for that. But the reality is I need double that. I need 18,666 SAM. There's not that much SAM in the world. And I was stumped for a bit, and I was like, how? How do I generate the most amount of power that I can possibly do? Then it hit me. We take all of the SAM, convert it to reanimated SAM, and we summer sloop that step. Every single bit of it, we summer sloop it. And we effectively cut the amount of SAM that we need in half, which means we have enough SAM to make this work, but I have to summer sloop it. So you might notice I need almost 27,000 iron ore, almost 19,000 copper ore, almost 33,000 limestone. That's a lot of stuff. And 10,250 bauxite. Like, we almost maxed out the bauxite too that's in this world. So I got a limestone train here that is 26 cars long. And this thing struggles to move without a second engine. I need to put a second engine on this thing. But this thing struggles. But yeah, here we go. So you can see how this train is just struggling to pick up speed. It's insane. If we look behind us. Look at that. That is so cool. That's insane. I love that. It is a snake. Now we have to go up this really, really large hill. And as you can see, we are losing speed. And the power required to push this train up the hill is increasing. That's how bad this is. But it's doing it. It's chugging along. But we still got a long ways to go. But yeah, this is the perks of building all your trains to 1 meter ramps only. 2 meter ramps, I would not be able to make it up. I don't think. But 1 meter ramps, it surprisingly does it really well. But you can see we're down to 60 kilometers per hour. Come on. So I built this huge platform. And I'm pretty sure this is like 250 by 150 foundations. It's going to be a large project and a multi-part series. So if you enjoyed the beginner's guide, which we're still on that map, by the way. Oh gosh. There's our rocket fuel power. There's our beginner's guide area. If you're a fan of that, you'll enjoy this, definitely. Are you as excited as I am for that nuclear power plant build? Because I'm gonna drive myself crazy. I'm gonna be honest. Let's be real. I'm gonna drive myself crazy by doing that nuclear power plant build. It's gonna take a lot of work. But that's fine. That's cool. What I did want to share with you is I do have a membership. I have a 99-cent tier. You get some badges, you get some emojis, and I will give you a member shout out at the end of every video, where I'll put your name on a screen. It'll be at the end of the video, and you will be memorialized in that video forever. It'll be a Gemzen fans page, tier 1, basically. Your name will be in there. And then I also have a higher tier, super fans. You'll get member shoutouts, you'll get priority reply to comments, so if you comment on my videos, you will be the first one I reply to, and you'll get everything from the previous level as well. You will get your own page of shoutouts, so there'll be the Gemzen fans page, and there'll be the Gemzen super fans page at the end of the video. Your name will be on that video forever. Don't feel obligated to sign up for my membership. This is only if you want to. You watching my videos is more than enough. You liking the videos, you commenting on my videos, you subscribing to my channel, that's all I need. If you want to go the extra mile, this option is here. You do not need to do this. This is only if you want to. But genuinely, I really do appreciate it when you watch my videos. I really do appreciate it when you stick around to the end. And I really do appreciate just being able to make these videos and do this as a hobby, do this for fun. So, thank you for watching. I really, really do appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful and blessed day. May God bless you in all your endeavors. Thank you, thank you. I don't know what else to say, just thank you for watching.